Hey everyone and welcome. I'm Dharmdeo Singh. I am a board of director at the CIFST and I'm associated with the University of Guelph. So, on behalf of the Canadian Institute of Food Science and Technology, welcome to our 2020 Knowledge Bites Fall webinar series. Thank you all for joining us today. First off, thanks to our generous support of our corporate sponsors. We first have Lactalis Canada, who is our exclusive platinum sponsor for 2025, and also to our bronze sponsor, BSA Weiberg. Before we jump into the webinar today, I just want to remind you to save the date. The CIFST 2026 Canadian Food Summit will take place on June 10th to 12th in 2026 at the Hilton Mississauga Meadowvale. Now, turning to today's session, our topic is barcodes and beyond, transitioning to 2D barcodes. Our speaker today is Alain Picard, who is an advisor of the community engagement at GS1 Canada. Now, if you have any questions for Alain during the presentation, we encourage you to actively engage by posting your questions, and you can find a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Alain, over to you if you can please introduce yourself to us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Just want to start by thanking Andrew at Dale for the invitation once again. We've done a few sessions with you in the past. It's always a pleasure for us to share as much information as possible on product identification, rules and regs. In this case today, getting into the evolution of the barcodes. I work in a division called community engagement, and really what the purpose of our division is really to reach out to associations and groups like yours and share as much information as possible on what's needed to bring a product to market quickly and efficiently while respecting all the rules and regs that surround the supply chain. And that's really what we're here to do. Not here to sell you anything here today. Much more information on how it works, and in this case, in this session, where we're going with 2D barcodes. All right. So I will share my screen and we'll get right into the presentation. Okay. All right. So the transition from linear to 2D. What does that mean? What does that entail? Okay, what we're going to look at. We'll do a brief introduction for those that don't know GS1 Canada. I'll do an introduction, who we are, what we do, why we do things. And then we'll jump right into the evolution of the symbology itself and everything that's attached to it. We'll look at Ambition 2027. Which is going to be the introduction late 2027, a sunrise introduction to 2D barcodes. We'll look at a few existing Canadian 2D initiatives that are already in place, and we'll look at a few international case studies just to put you in the mindset of why the evolution is going in the direction that it will be. All right, we'll finish up with a Q&A. Please put your questions in the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll answer all your questions. And if anything needs to be brought offline afterwards, I'm always open to have a one-on-one discussion with any one of you. All right, so here we go. 50 years ago, the barcode was introduced on a first pack of Wrigley's gum. It's actually 52 years now. And the purpose initially was for speed of checkouts. For some of you that are as old as I am, I used to go to the supermarket with my mom, and we used to stand in line for 20 minutes, a half an hour to get products through. So the barcode itself was initiating a global initiative to speed up the process and start to look at inventory control, the detail. In the olden days, everything had to be priced with a tag individually. So if you change the price, you have to go back and change the tag. So not very efficient. So we look at the evolution of that barcode that has now been with us over 50 years and where we're going to go with this. How we started getting involved in the platforms is way back when we decided GS1 was initiated in Europe as a member organization. Well, today we have 120 member organizations across the world, which makes us very international, which makes those global standards very much at the forefront. We operate in 25 global industry sectors, so we pretty well cover all the sectors. 10 billion barcodes scanned every day, a billion products used GS1 barcodes on a daily basis. All right, so that's on the global stage. What are the four principles guiding those global standards? All right, and there's really four of them that are of top importance. First, the identification of the product, where we use identification keys like a GTIN, a global trade number, or a GLN, a global location number. And that number is unique. That number, along with the information, is captured through the barcode, through the symbology. All right? And then the information by way of the identifier and the capturing are then shared throughout the networks so that brand owners, broker distributors, retailers have that information readily available right up to the consumer, right? And then the use standards are based on day-to-day use of different standards for different purposes with the ultimate goal of getting the best business practices, all right? So those are the four core principles to keep in mind. Now we're at the why factor. Why the evolution? Why more information is needed? Well, let's start with the consumers. We're all looking for more information readily and accurate, trusted information. To get to that stage, we need to enhance the encodability within the barcodes. The linear barcode can only encode so much information to be able to get to a consumer or get to a retailer. So the brand owners, from that perspective, are looking for an advanced platform to be able to enter more information, get traceability, which has become very important in the supply chain today, consumer engagement, more information for the consumer. And then from the retailer standpoint, they gather all that information, get it to that POS, that point of sale system, to be able to read that information and have more information available for them efficiently right at POS level. In other words, at the point of sale level. All right. So it's all involved in the supply chain that we're wanting to bring that whole level up of information traveling throughout the chain. All right. So to put things in perspective a little bit, we're going to watch a couple of minute video on the power of standards, why they matter, and how they fit into the global chain.
Who is GS1 Canada? GS1 Canada helps Canadian businesses succeed every day and everywhere around the globe. GS1 is a not-for-profit organization that develops, implements, and manages supply chain standards in multiple industries and in more than 150 countries. We provide industry with the tools, trust, and confidence they need to achieve business goals. The GS1 system of standards are built on four core principles, enabling industry to identify, capture, share, and use perpetually cleansed, accurate, and trusted product information. Our suite of solutions allow trading partners to speak to one another using one powerful global language of business. In the healthcare and pharmacy sector, GS1 standards help enable patient safety and improve the quality and efficiency of the healthcare system. Food service and grocery trading partners use GS1 global standards and registries to share brand-certified product, marketing, and nutritional information and images. This enhances consumers' safety and confidence in the food they eat and in the stores they shop at. Today, organizations recognize that effective data management tools are critical for business success. Canadian retailers are collaborating with their general merchandise and hardlines trading partners on the use of GS1 Canada product data management services to get products onto shelves and into consumers' hands faster. These tools also enhance product recall processes and improve marketing and advertising capabilities. global standards, trusted data from an organization that is constantly innovating. Canadian business runs on GS1 services and business solutions.
Okay, so that puts things in perspective from a global and from a GS1 Canada perspective. Now, keeping in mind, we have 120 member organizations. Not every organization offers the same services. The barcoding, GTINs, GLNs, that basic premise is global. All right. In other words, you can have your product here with a GS1 Canada barcode, and it will be readable out in Europe or in the States or anywhere else in the world where GS1 standards are involved. In Canada, we have 4 industry roles that we focus in on. First, we're developers. We develop for the industry. In other words, we are led by the industry for the industry. Okay? And then we work with community management. Why community management? It's a collaborative effort. To get to a standard, you need all the folks involved to be on the same page. This is how GS1, this is how the barcode started. It was a couple of supermarket chains in the United States that came up with the idea of standardizing what would now become the linear barcode for everyone, for every retailer. All right. The education piece takes place whether you're a small business starting off, a scaling business, or large conglomerate. There's the education piece that we do as we evolve, much like we're doing today with the 2D barcode. There's an education piece that takes place, which we offer. And in the implementation, we become partners as we implement, again, as an example, the new symbologies of 2D. Well, then we're partnering with the industry to implement and make sure they're all on the same page. All right. In Canada, we offer the third most range of services throughout the entire world. So we're quite proud of that. We're very much at the forefront of offering everything from product ID to images to data registries to sharing information. Okay? So that's where we stand. Now, on the small business end, which is a large part of our community engagement division, we've introduced a number of things that we do because, to put it in perspective, we have over 38,000 subscribers in Canada. In other words, businesses in Canada that deal with GS1. All right? Over 70% of that 38,000 are considered small business entrepreneurs. Where we had a gap is having the support systems for these folks. As many of these small businesses wear multiple hats, the education piece needed to come up a notch. So we understand the small business challenges. We take advantage, much like we're doing today with 2D, in the packaging, the design, the sizing, which becomes important. So that's an example of being supportive for those small businesses. We have regulation updates, be it nutrition facts tables, front of pack labeling, which came into effect earlier this year. We're not the regulators, but all these areas fit within the realm of standards to make sure everyone is operating in the same manner, and obviously to make sure your products are in compliance when hitting the store shelves. Continuous education, which is what we do here today, and we have free mentorship offerings when you're ready, pre-subscriber or early in a subscriber stage with us. I do some one-on-one free mentoring sessions as well. All right, and I'll be providing that information to Andrew after the session so that you can all have a look and see what the needs are. It'll be my pleasure to assist. All right. Okay, let's jump into the symbology, the evolution of where it has been and where we're going. The next generation of barcodes is going to lean towards two-dimensional, what we call 2D barcodes. If you look at the image here, we have a typical linear and we have what looks like a QR code, which we're all starting to be familiar with. The ultimate objective for the end of 2027 at the retail end is to be able to read and scan one barcode. In other words, a two-dimensional barcodes that will encode all the information that we currently have in a linear, plus additional data that's able to be added on there for batch lots, serial numbers, best before dates, the GTN, obviously. And that's really where we're wanting to go. All right. So let's take one little step back, go back to our linear, which is still used today, which will still continue to be used, by the way. And it starts with first identifying the product. That identifier is called the GTN, Global Trade Item Number. That's the number that sits underneath the symbology. That same number will be able to be used as you migrate to a 2D code. No need to assign new GTN. So that's a big plus for the industry. There's always cost attached to having to do that. Again, these numbers, these GTNs are permanently assigned, cannot be reused, right? So now, how are 1D codes different than 2D barcodes? Well, let's look at the 1D code. We can't encode any more additional data in a linear code. So description, French, English, net content, price. That is essentially where it sits, all right? As more information is added for shipping and logistics, we'll cover that after. Let's say an example of GS1 128, the barcode becomes very much larger. It's stretched, right? Bigger barcodes take more space, and they can only be read by lasers and optical scanners. On the 2D barcode side, you'll notice here, same information, except you have a 0, 1, 17, and a 10, which are identifiers. Those identifiers don't exist on the 1D. Those identifiers now able to have more encoded information within that barcode, right? So that's the data matrix, which is currently being used in pharma and cannabis. We'll touch on that a little bit later. And then the QR with digital link is really the ultimate code we want to get to have all-encompassing information on top of sites, sending you to a website, sending you to pages, giving you even more information on the product, right? So the key features there, much smaller in size, much higher capacity, GTN, lot numbers, expiry date as examples. Error correction features, much more dynamic than the linear. Globally required in the healthcare, which has been adopted in Canada since 2023. And they could be read by optical or image-based scanners. So that's where the difference is going to be once we hit 2027. Let's put a little emphasis on the size, especially when you get to smaller items. There's a GS1 128 1D code that has those same three identifiers, the 0, 1, the 13, the 10. There's your digital link code, and look how much smaller it has a footprint, but it has the same identifiers. Then we have a data stacked expanded stack bar, which is used for tight horizontal or a vertical type of setup. Well, that takes a lot of space because you've got three different linear bars for the three identifiers. So size does matter, and it will matter going forward as a result of. Okay? All right. We've got a global video here that was introduced earlier this year that we're going to show you, put things in context of where we've been and where we're going. All right?
The time has come to enable the scan of one barcode to unlock infinite possibilities for your retail business. Start leveraging product data to improve your supply chain, inventory management, and in-store processes. Gain visibility to more data to reduce manual actions and facilitate decision-making. Easily comply with regulations around the world, where the simple scan of a barcode allows you to collect, share, and act on all the information needed for transparency, sustainability, and safety. Begin enhancing your apps and loyalty programs together with 2D barcodes to create rich shopper experiences and enable greater safety and traceability. And yes, you can achieve all this while still maintaining the core function of scanning a barcode. By the end of 2027, the industry goal is that retailers worldwide will be able to process both today's linear barcodes and a defined set of 2D barcodes at point of sale. So where do you start? To begin is simple. Connect with your point of sale solution providers to assess the capabilities of your existing scanners. You may just need to perform some software upgrades to ensure the point-of-sale system receives the GS1 barcode number from the 2D barcode. If you have older scanners, new equipment that can process 2D barcodes may be needed. Once completed, you're ready to start scanning 2D barcodes. Once you can scan 2D barcodes for point-of-sale transactions, you can enhance your processes to capture and leverage even more data from these barcodes, such as batch lot or serial number, for use in additional business use cases. Brand owners around the world are already implementing 2D barcodes on their products. Many retailers are doing the same with their own brand products and are upgrading their scanning equipment, systems, and business processes to leverage richer product data available through next-generation 2D barcodes. The time to start your journey and begin unlocking your infinite possibilities is now. GS1 is ready to guide you through every phase of this transition. Visit gs1.org or contact your local GS1 member organization to learn more.
Okay, what are the main premise? Because this is somewhat retailer driven, it's not brand owner driven. We get a lot of questions often enough on, will I need to change all my GTINs? Do I need to change my symbology in my packaging? The answer is no. The linear code is not going anywhere. Although the 2D code, once it gets traction, much like the QR code has right now, it's going to take precedent. But the retailers have to be ready to be able to scan these new codes. And that's really where we're at right now in Canada, is in the retailers' hands of when they're going to be ready to be able to scan the codes, so brand owners can decide in their next batches of prints or packaging to now switch over to a 2D code and then have all that additional information added into that scan. All right, so at the consumer engagement end, it becomes super important. We're all looking for more information as we shop and go ahead. What we need is to have a standard of what that information is going to be and how we're going to be able, as consumers, take our phones and scan that code, much like we're doing a QR code. What we're going to want to do is scan that new 2D code to have all the information readily available to us. That's the ultimate objective. That information will transcribe all the way into the POS systems for you to have that one scan at checkout. What are we looking for? Common questions we get, that we have. Where did the product come from? Who made it? Is it sustainable? How do we use it? You know, in the food industry, and especially in the science and technology that you folks are in, it becomes very important. It has become more and more important to be able to dictate where these things and where these main components and these areas derive from. You want to have trusted data attached to that product. And that's where we come in. That's where the industry sets those standards so that we're able, as consumers and throughout the supply chain, access that information. All right? Okay. The ambition for 2027, much as it's dictated in the video, is really at the fundamental stage, the demand to have more information about the product throughout the supply chain. All right. So POS systems, much like the video depicted, are going to need to be upgraded or changed or software updated to be able to scan the different types of 2D barcodes, right? So right now it's in the industry's hands, more so in the retailer's hands. They'll need to define which codes are going to be read, what information they're going to request from the codes. And then we'll be able, through our platform, have all those attributes, which most of them are already in our platforms, encoded into a symbology when you're ready to create your barcode. All right? So what does that mean from now to the end of 27 and beyond? Transition period. The linear code, as mentioned, is going to continue to be used. And for some brand owners, that may still be more than sufficient. All right. And there is no pressure to have to change, but there is a pressure for consumers and retailers to get more information about products. Right. So transition, linear code, QR code, which is essentially quite common today, or the new code going forward once the retailers are able to scan. The ambition for 2027 is to have the linear or the QR data link or the ultimate GS1 data matrix with the links to have the complete array of information. Again, the industry is going to decide what they want based on the information that'll be able to be encoded, and then the symbology will be selected, and then it will become the standard, just like the linear code has been for over 50 years. All right? So basically in the industry's hands as we speak. In Canada and the US, we usually follow North American standards, and you'll see that come up more and more as we go along. All right? Okay. What's already been implemented? On the Canadian side, and most of global for pharma, for sure, because cannabis isn't legal in every one of the member organizations. But in the pharma sector, globally since 2023, 2D codes have been initiated. All right. They're reliable. They're very small footprint. You'll notice on your Tylenol bottles or your aspirin bottles, you'll start to see the 2D codes in very small footprint as opposed to the bigger linear code. So patient safety, when you get into the medical, the pharmacies, traceability is an absolute key. And you basically eliminate or at least reduce the counterfeit products. On the cannabis sector is a little bit newer, right? It's only been legalized, I guess, in the last 3-4 years officially. So they decided that based on traceability, because there's the medical side, they're used for medication and social. On the medication side, they decided to jump right away because they needed the extra information on content and everything else based on patient condition. So again, customer safety, traceability, very compact. Cannabis sector has very small products, so that 2D code comes into play. So these two initiatives are in place right now, but they're specific to pharma and cannabis. Right? Okay. One scan, all the benefits. Where are we going? Inventory management, reduce duplication, efficiencies, the locations, the avoid the waste, ensure freshness, especially in the food. We'll look at a couple of case studies after that'll really bring that point home. Traceability, more and more folks, as supply chain becomes global, are looking for traceability. Is the product authentic? Are the ingredient sourcing information accurate and there? That's where we come into play, because we ensure that the information is certified by the brand owners. All right? Supply chain visibility, which becomes important as you're trying to move your product through different retailers and trading partners. You want to make sure you get that trust and that your product are visible. So that traceability aspect comes into play. Safety, high on the list of priorities. As we look after the environment, sustainability comes into play. My packaging, is it eco-friendly? Am I getting the information right from farm to fork? All that type of information exists somewhere, but it's not basically shared in an efficient manner through the supply chain. Right? Consumer engagement, we talked about that before. We're all looking for more and more information. And the improved packaging. You'll be able to have a regulatory compliance, enhance the consumer experience with being able to scan right there on the site. Now, we're going to need the Googles and the Apples and the Androids system to come up to a consistent standard as well. So the various phones that are used out there will be able to scan the chosen barcode symbology going forward. All right. Okay, couple of case studies just to drive the point home a little bit on what some of our global partners have started doing. Woolworths in Australia used to have a lot of food wastes when it came to produce. They had no way of tracking the produce, when it came in, how long it was there for, so on and so forth. So they adopted internally a 2D code, which they were able to encode all that extra information in. And so they adopted it, and then it became a standard in other stores. They were the initiators, and today Woolworth is growing more and more towards the 2D, and it all started with inventory management. All right, inventory internal management. Now, that 2D, once it's read by POS systems and consumers, they'll be able to see all that information. Where were those berries from? Where did they come from? How long have they been here? Was it a best before? Was it a best before? What's the story with it? That's the key. That is the key. More information readily available. In Brazil, big bakery, Parla they're big pastry shops and bread outfits and stuff in Brazil. They were running into problems then with inventory control, best befores, and really wanting for them to control what was going on to minimize waste. They had all kinds of waste in their bakery. In other words, what was I selling? How many were I selling? Where were they done? How many? What's the date? When were they done? This is all manual processes. If you go into produce and bakeries within your grocery store, once that baguette or that piece of bread was baked, it has a date on it, but that's where it sits. So now, am I going to sell a stale piece of bread, or do I want it off the shelf, or do I want to cut it to make croutons? Whatever it is that you're going to want to make with that bread, you need that readily available data. Well, they initiated the 2D, and they replaced all kinds of manual processes. They even included it in their ERP system, right through to the point of sale. So as soon as that was in there, you could see the GTIN, the batch, the lot number, the serial, and the production date, all in one scan, without having to do anything more than to scan it either through the POS. So somebody going through, either a customer or an internal staff, is able to see readily what's going on with their inventory. All right. And then the third example was one that's is a little bit unfortunate the way they came about. 7-Eleven in Thailand, in their shops, they have a lot of ready-to-go meals. In other words, pre-prepared meals that they have for on-the-go folks. Very common, very common. Well, what they ran into is they were selling product that was past date, and they had an illness. They had a germ problem. And so it was reported. And unfortunately for them, it took a kind of a sour case to be able to come to the realization that they didn't have enough control over their best before dates, especially with those ready to go meals, right? So what they basically did is they made a QR 2D code for every one of their meals as they were going through. They put the code on it, and that information's encoded automatically with when it was done, the batch date, and so on. No more little stickers, no more printing. So what that enabled them to do is, starting with the consumer as they scan that item, if it's a self-serve counter, to know right away, including the person at the cashier, to know that, hey, oh, sir, ma'am, that product's past due. I wouldn't sell it to you. So again, eliminating the manual, it took an unfortunate situation to get to that stage, but they adopted 2D again for control, inventory management, and having that extra information encoded in their product scanning capability. All right. Okay. Lastly, throughout the session, we talked about information, data sharing. Our video showed the importance of trusted data. That's really where our strength is with GS1, is making sure that data is captured from the brand owners and it's able to be extrapolated to brokers, distributors, retailers throughout so that they have the information, everyone has the information on the data that travels with that product. And here are some of the perils when you don't have accurate data. And the more we advance, the more we're going to want information about products, the more we're going to want to trace products back and forth, the more this is going to become important. And so from the brand owner right through to the consumer, we're looking for quality, accurate, trusted data on products. All right. And that concludes the session. Deo, any questions in the chat for us that we can answer?
Yes, we do have questions. We have a question that asks, how will you know that all retail POS systems will be able to read the 2D barcode in 2027?
That's a great question. That's going to be an industry-led announcement. And what's going to be important for not just our subscribers, the entire country and US, is that you'll have a transition. You'll see some retailers be able to scan these as you go along. So it's going to be, a lot of it's not going to be, okay, on this day, everybody's compliant. There's going to be still that transition. It is our expectation that the major players, the major retailers, will have access and will be given access to the consumer and the brand owners on, yes, we're ready to fly. So the industry will advise us. For GS1, it'll be easy for us to advise all our subscribers, you may now be able to be printing 2D codes on your product. This is the code that's now officially used in Canada. If you don't want to, keep your linear. If you're ready to print some new cases or labels or so on, you're now able to print new 2D codes. And the caveat's going to be to ensure your trading partners can scan those two new D codes. So it's still going to be a transition, but it's going to be announced holistically as this goes along.
That's interesting. I do have a question of my own. So,
Yes.
let's assume the food supply chain, they adopt these 2D barcodes at different speeds. Would that be a risk at any point in the food continuum?
Not necessarily, providing that once it gets to the POS level, the point of sale, it's able to be captured. Keeping in mind, and it's an excellent question, the linear codes. You know, I referenced the GS1 128 before, that big long code.
Yeah.
A lot of those linear codes are still going to be used for shipping and logistics purposes. The 2D codes are essentially consumer and retailer based. So as I ship my pallets of product, the linear codes are still going to be used. And for them, it doesn't really matter if it gets larger because they're larger content pieces anyways. So those application identifiers, those key identifiers I talked about before, will still be able to be used. The 2D, consumer, retail purposes, not so much for logistics in between.
And one other question is relates to that, like especially for the one that the consumers can read, the GS1 digital link.
Yes.
What do you think, like there would be any like cybersecurity risk to that? Like,
hey, listen, I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't know that it would be a whole lot different than the present QR code that you're scanning with your phone, right?
Yeah.
It's your phone. If somebody's trying to fib you by way of putting a QR code, it's traceable. That wouldn't be too intelligent where I come from. But there might be some means today. There's a lot of hackers out there that might find a mean. What's important here is that trusted data is encoded in that specific barcode. So We have not, to answer your question, had any issues in people infiltrating the data that travels right now through the supply chain. So I don't
Yeah.
see it being an issue, but that's a very important question.
And just one last one, and if anybody else has one, please feel free to jump in. It's just that I found this pretty interesting.
Good.
So if you, I do have another one in the chat. Would
Go
2D
ahead.
barcodes improve traceability during recalls? If yes, how?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we have a recall process within GS1, and it's all attached to the key identifier, the GTIN. Here, the difference is with the recall, if you have 4 or 5 trading partners and you're dealing in 4 or 5 different areas, you'll be sending out one message. That's the power of dealing with the registry. One message will go out to all your trading partners saying, hey, we got to recall this product on batch number 123, produced on January 5th, 2025. That's going to be the power. It's the encoding of the information more specifically to a batch, a lot, if you're able to trace it back to a specific batch, which often is the case. That would be able to go out to all trading partners that you have in one full sweep.
And I think this sort of links to the question by somebody else. John asked a question: what benefits, if any, might consumers notice? And I guess that's one of the benefits. But are there any other that you could perhaps?
Well, the benefits, it's the added information, readily available. Where the product was grown, what kind of soil. Somebody in the bio world might want to know, hey, what soil did you use? Where was this done?
I guess things
All
like
that
allergen
happy
can be
information, by way of scanning, you'll be able to get. Now, that's not to say by scanning the QR code right now, they wouldn't have that information. The difference with the 2D going forward is the brand owner will be able to add all that much more information to their product. So the consumer can benefit and the retailer. Because if the retailer's got a nice story to tell about a product and they want to promote bio products, well, then let's use live examples of bio products with the nicest history and the nicest story to tell. I mean, now you put your marketing cap on.
On that one, I was thinking that, if you want to check, see if a product like the ready-to-eat foods, if it has an allergen inside of it, or you're allergic to eggs, you can scan the code and you'll find out. Yeah.
And the more this evolves, the more data will be able to be added. You see, it's unlimited. We're talking in excess of 3,000 characters to be able to be encoded in one code. That's a lot of information, you know, compared to 21 to 35 on a linear code.
And we do have one last question here. What has been the biggest implementation challenge for 2D barcodes?
The buy-in. The buy-in. I'll go back to my 2 examples of pharma and cannabis. A little bit of a no-brainer. I'll use no-brainer as a simple term. Why? Patient safety. I mean, you're in the pharma, you're in the medical world. What's your first objective? Patient safety. So by having more information about the product to be able to share with the pharmacists, the doctors, all the way to the patient, it all stems back to traceability and patient safety. All right. Yeah. At the grocery hardlines end, well, what's more in it for me? I mean, why do I have to invest in all this equipment if it's not really going to give me much? Consumers are dictating that pace. They're really dictating that pace. That's why, and I'm just thinking of this out loud, not it's a scientific opinion. That's most likely why 52 years later, we're still using a linear code. I mean, if the old don't change, if it's not broke, don't change it type of thing.
Yeah.
52 years. I mean, in the technology changes that we've lived in, just in our little lifetime, imagine that the same linear code produced 50 years ago still being used today.
That's true. That's true.
Right? So the buy-in would be my short and brief answer to that. Because there's a cost attached. There's a cost attached for the retailers, right?
Yeah. And just one last quick thing. Who ultimately owns and controls this data that's embedded in the barcodes?
Well, the owners, the brand owners, are the responsible certified folks that enter. We offer the platform and the need based on the industry needs.
Yeah,
right? We don't dictate that pace. The
Okay.
industry dictates what they're looking for. The
Okay.
brand owner enters the information. They're the ones responsible to tell their story and to have the accurate information in there. Our responsibility is to be able to transmit that through all the different supply chain needs as that product goes through the supply chain. You
Awesome.
understand? So
Yes.
that's the difference. That's the difference.
Thank you.
And the retailer and the broker distributors, they're the recipient of the information.
Yeah.
So if you want to stay on good standing with your trading partner, it's in your best interest, and your reputation as a brand owner, it's in your best interest to provide accurate, trusted data.
Definitely.
Right?
Do we have any more questions for Alan? Anybody? I don't see any more in the chat. So I'm assuming there's nothing else. Well, perfect. Alan, on behalf of CIFST, thank you so much for this presentation. It was definitely wonderful. We
Hey,
enjoy
it's
having you.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Just a few very brief takeaways from this. Global movement 2027, no rush to the finish line. There's going to be transition. Big difference with 1D and 2D, extra data. All that added information. Consumer engagement really driving the process here. And then our Canadian 2D initiatives, pharma, cannabis, already in place. So a lot of reference material is used based on those two sectors, although not as critical on the food. But then again, on the food sector, we're all looking for more info and wanting to have food safety as well in there. So it all intertwines. Those are the key things to look for as we go forward. If you're a brand owner, no rush to the finish line, something to keep in mind as you evolve. Those would be the key takeaways. And
Yeah.
from me to you, thank you very much as well.
Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining. Be sure to join us next Wednesday on March 25th at the same time at 12 p.m. EST for our upcoming webinar. The title of that webinar is Workplace Up to Date with Occupational Health and Safety OSHA Requirements. And this will be done by Bill Chen from the Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. Registration is open for this webinar and it's on our website and it's free for all CIFST members. We appreciate your active participation today and we look forward to having you again in our upcoming sessions. Thanks again, everybody, and thanks again, Alain. Take care,
Pleasure.
everybody.
Thank you.